is the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry, brought to you from the southwest of England and listened to around the world. Hello and welcome to Chewing the Cud podcast. My name's Andrew Jones and with me today is
Sarah Bolt.
How you doing, Sarah?
I'm really good, thank you, Andrew. How are you doing?
Yeah, sun's shining, getting a little bit warm out there.
It is. It's a bit warm and muggy at the moment, isn't it, down here in the south?
Well, it definitely is, and it's supposed to only be getting warmer as the week goes on.
We shouldn't complain.
Well, no, but it does make me nervous about the forage situation, but we'll wait and see, I guess, on that one.
Yeah, it's been a challenging year, but I think every year is, isn't it, in its own special way?
Well, that's undoubtedly the case. And as you mentioned every year, I mean, I guess one thing I want to say is I can't believe this is the end of year 3.
It's amazing, isn't it? Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I guess I never thought after 3 years I'd still be doing podcasts, and which is really good. So I guess what I'd like to do one last time is thank Neil for being part of this journey. Obviously, without him, this wouldn't have started. And this is actually the last of the podcasts pre-recorded with him before he retired from hosting. So this will be the last time everyone will hear Neil's tones.
Well, thank you, Neil, for allowing me to fill your shoes, and big boots they are to fill too. So thoroughly enjoying my journey so far.
Good. I mean, I should also thank our guests' patience, because this podcast was actually recorded back in July 2024. And as you listen, you'll hear him mention where he was going to be at the local show. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to fit it in before the local show. So we had some discussion and let's do it now, so it can be in this year's show. So just as a call out for that, our guest today will be at location D17 by the main ring at the Gillingham Shaftesbury show this year, which is 2025. So please do go and look out for him there, and he'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
Awesome.
Well, I'd also like to thank everybody who listens, because we are undoubtedly, this last year, the aim has been to increase our listenership, and that's now happened with us consistently being in the top 25% of all podcasts on metrics, which is fantastic. And with that, obviously, year 4 starts the 1st of July, or the new season starts, so there will be in July. So there will be a website update with an updated bio of both Sarah and myself, and some other bits and pieces for the podcast on the 1st of July from the website. The new season will start, as we've said before, will now be on a Wednesday moving forward. So the first episode will be on Wednesday, the 2nd of July. And the other thing I'd like to do is obviously thank Sarah for stepping up and filling in Neil's shoes, initially as a guest host, but now full-time. So thank you very much, Sarah, for that one.
Oh, it's definitely my pleasure, I can assure you.
But otherwise, I guess it's like usual. Hope you go and enjoy today's podcast. This podcast has been brought to you today by Chewing the Cud Limited, who offer independent advice for dairy and beef nutrition, cow signals advice and training, along with ROMS mobility scoring. For more details on these and other services available, please visit our website www.chewingthecud.com or email us direct on nutrition@chewingthecud.com. Hello and welcome to Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry. Farmer, advisor, processor, and everyone else, we have topics and episodes that will interest you. We discuss the practical and the technical aspects of different UK dairy industry topics. We aim to make you think about what you're doing and ask yourself, can it be done differently? Listen to us speak with specialists from inside and outside the industry about their area of expertise. Subscribe and listen to episodes for free on your favourite podcast platform, or sign up on our website www.chewingthecud.com for podcast notifications so you never miss an episode, and links to our socials, including our Instagram, Chewing the Cud Podcast. All one word, and remember, no G. Or email us direct on podcast@chewingthecud.com. If you like what we do, please share and leave us a review to show your support. And that's it. Enjoy today's episode. Hello and welcome back. And as we've already mentioned, today we're talking about insurance. And with us is our guest, Simon Reeves from Pangea. How are you doing, Simon?
Very well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
That's all right. I suppose maybe I should disclose at this point that the reason I've asked Simon along. We're going to talk about insurance and what to look for and not to look for on farm, etc. But Simon actually does my insurance for the business, don't you, Simon?
I do indeed.
So, I better behave, hadn't I, in case he decides he better put my insurance up for whatever reason.
That's right. I would.
Well, that's what clients like, high premiums.
Everybody asks for a higher
No,
one.
they don't.
And I should say, Simon's very good. We did the insurance for local discussion group with yourself as well, didn't
yeah,
we?
no,
So
that was very good.
after we'd done that, so that's good. So
right.
just disclose that to start with. Simon is
Yeah.
actually my insurance broker. So
Yeah.
there you go.
That was very interesting, that dinner. Obviously, I bumped into some
Few
old people
clients,
that I dealt
yep.
with sort of 20 years ago. So,
Yeah.
That's a lovely group. That's
Yes, because you've been.
I've spoken to
you've
them
spoken
about
to
South
them and
Africa.
stuff.
Yeah.
You have.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Simon, we usually start with a little bit about your background. So how did you get from, I don't know, where you are from where you were to where you are today?
Okay, so everyone loves insurance, obviously.
Oh yes.
So it all started back when I was just leaving college, and my older brother was insurance, and
Okay.
it looked like he was doing quite well for it, so I thought I'd follow in his footsteps.
Well, you saw the pound signs and went,
That's-
oh.
Can't remember, who knows, maybe. So, yeah, I've done 30 years commercial insurance.
Yep.
20 years of that's agricultural.
Yep.
10 years of that's being near enough being my own boss.
Yep.
But yeah, so we used to live in Southampton, but moved here when the kids came along to have a rural upbringing for them, living
Yep.
next to a farm.
Yep.
And that's when I started dealing with farmers and haven't looked back, really.
Never looked back. Yeah, because you and I have sort of known each other on and off for, must be 8 years now at least, for sure.
Yeah, it would have been 2002 when we moved here, and shortly after dealt with my first farmer.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah, because you insured me when I used to relief milk. You did
Would have
I got relief milking insurance, didn't I?
Yep.
Through yourself.
That's
So
right.
I knew yourself. Anyway, that's not what we're. So obviously, yeah, been in the insurance game for a little while, and particularly looking at farming, and that's what we want to talk about is insurance aimed at farming today.
Yep.
So, really, where do we start? What should we be looking at if I came to you today as a potential client on farm? What information do you want? What should you be looking at? What shouldn't they be looking at? Why are some in premiums more than others? I know there's lots of questions in here, but
Yeah, okay.
where do we start? Yeah.
pitfalls and
Yeah, so take a step back.
Yep.
Really. So all insurers like to win.
Yes.
So
It's a risk management,
It
effectively,
is.
isn't it?
So
Yeah.
we've got to work hard to satisfy all their requirements with the right information to get the right terms and right conditions. So if something goes wrong, everyone's happy.
Yeah.
But the basics that they want is what's called a fair presentation of risk. So we've got to come in and have a full discussion with the farmer, find out exactly what's going on, what he's doing, what he's not doing, what's involved, how his claims have run for the last 3 to 5 years. But yeah, as I say, fair presentation of risk is the real key words.
Yep.
So we look at everything from the infrastructure of the buildings, what they're constructed of, how everything is operated on the farm from a security point of view.
So for a new client, would you visit on farm? It's not just over the phone.
No, in most cases, I'd much prefer to go and see a client,
Yep.
meet people face to face. You know, part of my business isn't just being an insurance broker; it's being a trusted partner
Of the business.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think meeting people face to face helps a massive amount from that than just
Yeah.
dealing over the phone or by email. Because when you're sat around the table, like this, one question leads to another.
Yeah.
You can physically see what's going on, and that leads to more questions and more questions.
Just like
Yeah.
we're doing now,
Yeah.
effectively. And that's what we always say. We never edit it. We just, because you never know what tangent you might go on and actually could be really relevant without even realising
No,
it.
for sure. But in most cases, people have got existing covers.
Yep.
So you want to look at what they've got to start with,
Yep.
see if that is fit for purpose.
What they
Sometimes-
actually need.
Yeah, sometimes it's right. Sometimes there's some errors in it.
Yep.
In most cases, because people don't like to spend money, they underinsure,
Yep.
which is a big problem.
So do you find that a lot?
Yeah, most places will think it's the right thing to do, but it's not.
Right.
So yeah, you definitely do not want to underinsure, because if the worst happens, all an insurer's going to do
It's paid to that limit.
is apply their average clause and have a deduction on what they pay you, which doesn't make you happy, doesn't make me happy.
So use an example. Let's say you're insured to what you've got is to 2 million. I'll make the numbers easy. But you're only insured to 1 million. What then would they potentially see back out from that?
You've only insured for 50%.
Percent? Yep.
So whatever claim you have, they're only going to pay 50%. So you have
So you wouldn't even get the full million.
oh no, you're only going to get 50% off.
So half a million.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a drastic loss for a small premium saving.
Yeah, that is. It's because automatically I was thinking, oh well, you'll get your 1 million because that's what you insured up to. But you're saying no,
No.
because they've only insured to half of what
Yeah.
potential value is, or the full value is. You're only going to get half of what you insured it for.
And the difficulty is that people look at what they've got and they think, oh, that's cheap.
Yeah.
But it's not just what you look at. You've got to consider taking down what's left of a burnt out building, for
Yes,
example, clearing
yes.
the site,
Clearing the site to start
all
with.
of your fees,
Yep.
planning.
Yep.
And all
Potentially older buildings, asbestos
Yeah, yeah, that's a big
removal
cost.
and disposal.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's the speed of payout, everything like that? Because that would be.
Well, it depends on the type of loss that you've got.
Yeah.
If it's a big loss and it's pretty clear cut, you can get an interim payment up front
Right.
from insurers to keep all your suppliers happy, to keep all the materials
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah.
But it very much depends on the type of claim you've got going.
So you've got to think about that when you're taking the policies. Just make sure you understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, from the insurer's point of view, there's only a limited number of insurers that do farm insurance.
Yep.
You've got your couple of mutuals.
Yep.
And then a handful of commercial insurance companies.
Yep. Yep.
But they all operate to a degree on a fairly similar basis. They have to compete.
Yeah.
But yeah, on farm, construction is obviously very important. Your sums insured are very important, making sure we know what we're insuring. Number of staff you've got, looks at your wages. Depending on the activity that you're doing, looks at the turnover or the acres of land that you've got.
Yeah.
So there's a number of factors that we'll need to sort of discuss with farmers before we can start getting any quotes.
So, as an example, what's the most underinsured you found somebody?
Well, who knows?
Okay.
Well, without a claim occurring, it's difficult to know for sure, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
but
I would
when
say-
you've reviewed and someone's gone, I'm insured
Oh, well, you'd quite often see people half.
half of what
Yeah.
they should be.
Yeah, definitely. But the frustrating thing is that the actual building cost
Yep.
is relatively cheap.
Yep.
You might be talking a couple of £100 difference to have full insurance.
Right.
But dare I say, they just like to trim
Well,
trim where they can.
Let's be honest, none of us like to pay more for
Well,
insurance than we have to, do we?
Well, I totally agree. But you do want to have a full payout if something goes wrong.
You want to, make sure you're fully covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I suppose, from a competition point of view, if you've got two companies vying for the same business, as the purchaser, I've often found that you've got to be real careful that you're taking the right policy for you rather than the cheaper policy for you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, my big thing about me, I would say, is that I try. If I have a client, I'm honest with them.
Yeah.
And I will tell them things that they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
You've got to, though,
You have
really.
to,
haven't you?
absolutely.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you don't dilly-dally around. You just tell them how it is.
Yeah.
They'll either like it or they won't like it.
Yeah.
And it's up to me to explain the implications.
The differences, the implications, yeah.
And sometimes it costs more. But if you want the right cover, that's what it is.
But you have to have the right cover.
You have to have the right cover.
You just have to. Yeah.
So where's a good place? So obviously, you like to go on farm and see what's around.
For sure, yeah. So most sort of new farms to me are sort of word of mouth recommendation.
Yep.
Either from other farmers or from livestock auctioneers that we deal with or machinery dealers.
Yep.
So yeah, you want to go on site. You'll be there for an hour, 2 hours. Firstly, sat around the kitchen table, chatting, understanding the background,
The business.
Talking about various sums insured. Then have a look round, or sometimes vice versa. Just see what's actually there. The two common things on most farms are A, housekeeping, and B, health and safety.
Right.
That's right. Yeah, makes sense.
So if it looks a mess, possibly it is. If it looks neat and tidy, it's probably well run.
Yes.
It's not always the case, but generally so. But and depending on the size of the business, depends on how much health and safety you need to comply with. But again, I would always say to clients, well, just because you might be under the magic 5 number, you're still
doesn't
better,
mean you can't.
No, that's right. You're still better off having the best processes. Follow what a big business does to your small business, and hopefully that will run smoother. Because no one wants interruption.
No, and then from a sort of costing point of view, in agriculture, have we got it right? In other words, replacement value and value of. Do we get that right?
Apart from, I would say, buildings,
right?
You're pretty good at knowing what your livestock's valued at.
Okay,
that's pretty good, and your inputs, they're all pretty good. There's quite often a discussion over machinery, tools. Again, going back to
tools, particularly.
I was thinking that tractors.
Some people have probably got tools that go back generations and have even been forgotten they're there until such a time.
Well, that's it. And so this goes back to the phrase about insurers like to win.
Yeah.
So ideally, you want evidence of ownership.
Yeah.
And that's obviously an invoice if it's in your accounting cycle.
That can be hard if it's
grandpa's spanner.
Yeah. So the thing I tell clients is that on a quiet day, whenever you get one of them, is have a good clear up, lay your tools out, take photos. It's all date and time stamped, and that's some evidence of ownership.
That's very good advice. That's actually what you should before you even have anybody come in.
Because I'm just thinking, I've recently picked up a client and they had a fire insurance recently, and I know talking to them, they're like, we suddenly go, oh, we haven't found that yet. Oh, it must have been in the shed that burned down. We've just forgotten. Sometimes we've forgotten some of the stuff that's even there. It's only now I don't know, whatever it is. I can't remember the exact time frame, but let's say it's 6 months later going, oh, I need that.
Definitely.
Oh, I can't find it.
But that's
it must have been in there.
That you were talking about.
That's right.
Yeah. I suppose it is, but we all know it on farm, especially tools could have been there for.
It's not until you need it.
I don't have a farm, but I'd be really caught out.
But we do. We're all like, I know my other half moans about some of the stuff I've got in my office, and it's like, but it'll be useful one day, and there it is. 2, 3, 4 years later, you dig it up. Yeah, there it is. That's fine. And then farm it would just multiply.
Yeah.
So whether it's small kit or big kit, farmers have a good handle of what things are worth.
Yeah.
But like I say, it's just proving you had it initially and proving its value.
Yep.
Yeah. And prove what purchase price was, and then depreciation, and then and we've got that right in agriculture. That
in general, compared to commercial,
right?
It's pretty good.
Good for us. There we go.
So, like you're saying, we're not necessarily the best at buildings. What do you do? Do you have that, or do you get a what's the word? A valuer in to value
For sure.
it? Or?
So commercial clients, I would say, are just as bad as farming clients when it comes to sort of building sums insured in the main.
Yep.
I always say to clients, I'm not a valuer. I know they're not a valuer. So
it's probably no different, really, just on a different scale. Because I know every year when I do the house insurance, what's the house worth? What's this? And you're like, I think this is what it's worth on the commercial market. And I guess it's a similar sort of situation, isn't it?
So a lot of people still get confused between market value, so you're going to sell it, as opposed to a rebuild value.
Yes.
And the rebuild's got lots more involved, as we said, than just the structure
site
that you
clearance
can see.
and whatever else.
And also sometimes it's what's underground. It also includes all of your surrounding walls and fences and concrete yard.
Yep.
So insurers want to know the full picture.
Yep.
Yeah. But
and the age of the building, and obviously if you're going to rebuild it, you'll have to do the foundation again, and
depending on what the type of building is, and obviously in most cases, farms obviously have built up over many years with bits added on here and there. And if something happens to that, you build it as a big metal shed now, don't you?
Yes.
Yes. So it's you have modern materials, modern designs, more fit for purpose for modern farming.
Yeah. Because just as you were saying that, I mean, that's sometimes depending on where you got the property from, you might have bought it from someone else who might not have had planning permission on one room at the back.
You
just
never
don't
know.
what
You
you
don't
get.
know. You don't know. Yeah, well, planning and farmers is hand in hand.
Yeah.
So once you've had that initial chat, what happens from there?
So yeah, I'll gather all the information that I need. We also talk about claims experience. So
Yep.
historically, insurers were just after 3 years. A lot of insurers now after like a 5-year period.
Yep.
And then we have some discussion about the claims. What was involved? Are those people still involved in the business, or they've moved on? Put forward a presentation, send it off to insurers, follow up on that, and try and come back with the right figures, with the right deal for clients.
Yeah.
So most people obviously are very keen to have as low a premium as possible.
Sure.
But it's got to be the right product, and that often means it's not just what you buy up front, but the service that you get in the background if something goes wrong.
Yep.
And so much of insurance is managing expectations.
Yeah.
Dealing with insurers, it saves clients from having to deal with insurers, but for brokers, it's still quite frustrating. You've got to push one for this, two for that.
Yeah. You still get it as well.
Yeah, but that's right. So your clients don't get it, but we do, and you have to deal with insurers' service levels, and they say, "Oh, we'll deal with it, but it's going to be 3 to 5 days." And we say, "Well, I don't want 3 to 5 days. I want 5 minutes. I want to be able to go back to clients."
So you don't have a magic number or button you can push to get things moving quicker.
To get to the front of the queue.
Yeah, well, only my charm. So who knows? But yeah,
Sometimes works.
that's it. But
It'll work for me.
But you've just got to be, honest with clients and tough with insurers.
Yeah.
That's what it is, really.
Yeah. But so you've seen the client, you've put something together for them. You've obviously been asked for the history. Really, then it's them accepting it or not, I guess.
So
is it?
So when it comes to, it's quite an interesting one when you ask clients if they had any claims. So
Yep.
the instant reaction is, "Oh no, I've never had any."
Yeah.
And then they go, "Well, thinking about it,
Yeah.
there might have been one." And as they explain that one, they go, "Well, actually, there might have been another one," with a finger on their chin.
Yeah.
So
But not a big one.
not a big, no, that's right, only 100,000. So fortunately, on the farm side, some insurers are helpful to us in that they will give us quotes on the basis of, I've asked the client, they've told me, I've told them.
Yeah.
Some insurers and majority of commercial insurers do want that evidence from the previous insurer up front,
Yeah.
Right.
which can delay matters because some insurers are slower in providing that evidence, which is frustrating. But in the main, I ask, they tell me, we take it on faith.
Yeah.
If the quotes are done, if we want to proceed, we will still need to get that evidence in writing from the insurer.
Yep.
In most cases, it stacks up. Sometimes there's a slight deviation to what was advised, and sort of handle that on a case by case basis.
Yeah. Was that? I mean, I was sort of thinking about what you were saying about going on farm on a farming situation. That's got to be a much better idea because, like you said, there's a variance in. Like one place would be newer buildings, one would be older buildings.
True. The method of calculation by insurers is still much more rudimentary than you might think.
Yeah.
So, we give them the details of the construction, and age, and if it's single story, 2-story, the electrics, the heating.
I suppose listed, not listed.
Listed, not listed. Yeah. Condition.
Details of intruder alarms or fire alarms, fire extinguishers.
Yeah.
So there's a whole host of underwriting information we provide to insurers.
Yeah.
But their rating is pretty, got quite a wide brush.
Yeah.
How they want to interpret it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it comes down to the majority of insurers to entertain doing a quote. They want us to give them a target.
Right.
So we either have to ask the client what they're paying now, what their renewal terms are, or from our experience, what we think it
Can
should
it be under 5k or whatever it happens
absolutely.
to be? Yeah.
And if you don't give them that, you'll either be at the bottom of the pile or they won't bother quoting.
Yeah. Right.
So some clients say, "Well, I don't want to tell you what I'm paying because you'll just cut it by £5." Well, that's not how I operate at all. I will. If I work for you, I work for you.
That's an important point. That though.
I will screw it down as best I can.
Best you can, of course you will.
And that's what I would.
Can
like,
you do better for me next year?
No, well, this is the frustrating thing, isn't it? We're in a cycle of premiums going up.
Yeah.
And I was thinking back for this podcast about when I first started doing farms, the average farm premium was sort of between £2,500 and £5,000.
And yeah.
It's considerably more now. It's more like £5,000 to £10,000.
Do you think it's
not
'cause-
15,000?
Do you think it's because farms are bigger?
There's a combination of factors. So everything's gone up really.
Yeah,
hasn't it?
replacement costs.
So all
Yeah.
your buildings cost more.
Yep.
All your inputs are more. All your machinery is more, particularly when it comes to tractors.
Yeah.
How they've sort of jumped up in price
Price.
somewhat.
Yeah.
Your wages have gone up.
Yeah.
And it's not just everything that you input, but it's, if something goes wrong, how much it costs to fix.
Yeah.
Everything else costs more
That's true.
to replace
Yeah.
and repair.
Yeah.
All the labour costs for people to fix things has gone up.
Yeah.
So, the insurers have a long list of reasons
Yeah.
why premiums have gone up.
And to be fair, the equipment that we use nowadays is far more modern. It's more computer based.
Yes. So it seems to be now that things don't get repaired; they just get replaced.
Yeah.
But also, I was going to say though, but going back to what I was sort of saying, we'd all know there are less farms out there now, and what farms there are
Yeah,
usually
I've got
bigger
larger,
as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But you think on that comment then? Sorry, you think more stuff is being replaced rather than
Yeah,
repaired?
definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think? Why do you think that is? Just because the cost to repair?
Cost. Yeah, and I think the skill set of how to repair things is gone or going, and it's much easier to unplug something and plug something else in.
Well, it's like they say that it's not mechanics anymore; it's fitters. They fit something; they don't repair something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been talked about. I know in terms of agricultural engineers. Well, I can think of that phrase at least 25 years ago. They're all just fitters now, rather than. No offence, because I'm sure there are some out there, but I'm sure.
Definitely, lots of body shops and stuff. But it's just the cost, the labour cost compared to repairing it or replacing
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And it seems to be that insurers are much keener on writing things off now.
Is that right? Well, again, why do you think that is? Surely it's not in their benefit to.
Well, it's just an element of cost. Obviously, as I say, they always do everything so they can win.
Yes.
And everything is looked at
Least
at
cost
money.
option, basically.
So one of the things that I would say to clients, particularly when we start talking about claims, and there's a slight disagreement, is that obviously when you pay to take out insurance, you're transferring the risk from you to the insurance company.
Yes,
So if something
yes.
goes wrong, they pay.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're juggling the risk, aren't
That's
they?
it. But moreover, you also transfer the morals.
Yeah.
And you think morally, well, no, you can fix that nice and cheap. And
Yeah.
they say, no, we're going to write it off. And whether that's your vehicle or a third-party vehicle,
Or whatever.
it's you transferred it to them, and you can tell me how you feel.
Yeah.
I would take that on board. I will explain that to the insurers. But end of the day, it's their money.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, it's cheaper for them to proceed with their experience and knowledge
Yep.
overall, as opposed to the individual case.
For argument's sake, they're not.
Yeah.
While you say you'll pass it on sentimentally, they're not interested in the sentiment. They're interested in the monetary outcome.
Yeah, in general, yeah. There are some cases where you have that personal input,
Yeah.
and it does make a difference. But they're a commercial business, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
they.
yeah.
That's what they
Yeah.
are.
So as you mentioned it, so let's say we have a claim to make, I don't know, a fire or, let's use fire as an example.
Damaged tire on a tractor.
Well, what's the go?
Fire. So fire. You get a phone call. Say it's up in smoke. Depending on where it is, you might want to go out and see it straight away.
Yeah.
But the main thing is just to get hold of the insurers, and they would appoint a loss adjuster to be, their eyes and ears on the ground.
Yep.
Generally speaking, the farmer has the ability to take certain steps themselves to minimise risk to anything else.
Yep.
So even if that's incurring more cost or damage to create a fire separation to stop it spreading.
Yeah. Create a fire break of some kind.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But then obviously the fire service will come along, put the fire out. Hopefully, obviously, when they put the fire out, that also may cause water damage elsewhere and things like that. So all of that's part of the claim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then it's a case of sitting down to analyse what's gone wrong, what are the costs involved trying to get builders to quote,
Yeah.
which obviously can take quite a long lead time as well.
Yeah.
Some materials take a long time to come in, depending on if
Yeah.
it's a certain type of building. If you've got various types of electrical doors on it, they take time to arrive from different countries.
Or where it's coming. It's probably not so bad now, but I remember as child, must have been 8-10 years old, we had a Fiat tractor, first four-wheel drive tractor we had. Somebody rolled it late July. Italy, Europe shut down for the month
that's
in
right.
August, didn't they? So for a sort of month, I think about 6 weeks, we had this tractor that was driving around with a cab with all broken on windows and all sorts because you couldn't we needed a full replacement cab, or what I think it was, because they'd say someone had rolled it, but we couldn't do nothing because Italy had shut down for the month.
Yeah. No, well, we hear that quite often where we're waiting for parts.
Yeah.
So a client will have a temporary tractor on demo.
Yep.
And he said, "Oh yeah, just be a week." And then next week he phoned up and said, "Oh, just extend it for a week." And
Yes.
I had one that was literally 6 months.
Really?
Waiting for parts.
Yeah, but I can also understand that replacement because I mean, with even if it comes to cars, but it could be the same on a tractor. If you've got to replace, you've got to give me a car to last me until the car's repaired. That cost finding me a car, getting me a car.
Yep. It's big money.
It's a fine line, and that's probably why they just write it off or replace it. It's
quicker
easier.
quicker to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, time you hire a car or tractor in that instance for 6 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had one just the other day where a car hit a tractor. You know, and like straight away, that's like 10 grand's worth of damage to the tires and the wheels.
Yeah.
Potentially damage to axles as well.
Well,
which,
yeah, exactly.
Could suddenly jump from 10 grand to 25 grand.
Yeah.
You know, and again, that's going to be, and it was a particular type of tractor for a particular job, so that's going to be a big cost.
More
to
specialist.
rent in.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes the smallest claims can all of a sudden be, you know, big bucks. But
And then the write-off is far cheaper.
that's right. That's right. But the complaint I get quite often from clients is, why is this total claim cost so much? And when you break it down between what the actual damage was to the hiring of a car,
Yeah.
the hire car element is quite often the same price as what the write-off is. As well. So it's very frustrating.
I could believe that, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you say, sometimes you think, well, just write it off quickly.
Yeah.
Avoid that hire car cost completely.
Pay the person out, get on with your life. Yeah. Now, my daughter had a crash in her car, and I sort of thought to myself, which is maybe just my generation, we'll fix that.
Yeah.
Insurance company didn't even entertain the idea.
Well, say if airbags go off, they just write it off.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that happened, but
because of the damage inside the vehicle.
Right. Okay.
It costs too much to repair, even though otherwise it's all right.
Yeah.
Throwaway generation.
So obviously, loss adjusters being, you start to make the claim. What usually then happens then is more a case of just keeping it pushing forward.
That's right. Yeah. So depending on the type of loss and the materials involved, fires generally aren't too quick to repair because there is a big clear up time and a lead time for getting in the materials and for getting structural engineers in, getting the other builders in. So it's definitely not a 5-minute job. Then obviously you've generally got electrics in there. You might have had solar panels on the roof, all those sort of things. So there's lots of other complications to it. But in a lot of cases, like we said, if you get fire damage, it's quite often the opportunity to relocate or have a different type of property, a different type of barn put up. That's more fit for purpose. So it's definitely not a straightforward just replace what's there.
Yeah, because the steel structures, obviously, you're not going to have that many fires.
No.
Hay fires happen, trust me.
But hay fires. But I mean, I suppose they could.
Yeah, well,
that could damage the structure.
Again, I'm looking back over. I was considering what claims I've had in the past here for this, and motor claims is the main thing that farmers have. You know, then you'll have some theft claims off farm for tools, and a bit of produce,
probably quad bikes,
quads definitely, hand tools. You'll get livestock claims where the cow's been fatally injured in transit or trying to stray. And then obviously the damage that might cause to a third party through the straying.
You ever had any claims on butchering in the field?
Nope.
You haven't?
No.
Because I know that has happened a few times, hasn't it? Animals have literally been butchered in the field.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, I've heard stories of it. Yeah. So, but fortunately not.
Yeah.
Where I come from, this happens every day.
It's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah, it's terrible.
But yeah, I think motor is the predominant.
Right.
Fortunately,
Which
fire.
you'd sort of think, to be honest, because let's be honest, they're either in a tractor or a Land Rover or whatever it happens to be. Like most of us, it's that's what you're doing most of the time.
And
isn't
where
it?
we are, there's obviously a lot more narrow lanes.
Yep.
You know, we're not all big. There's obviously no motorways around here, are there?
No.
A few dual carriageways.
True. Yeah.
But narrow lanes. But the thing that
That's right.
I always tell clients is that to invest in hardwired dash cams. You know,
Yeah.
definitely front, and if you
Yeah.
can back, just as an independent set of eyes, because it's surprising how people's stories change.
Yeah.
From sorry, it was my fault to, oh no, it definitely wasn't my fault.
I wasn't even there.
Yeah, that's it.
I've got to be honest with you, I've done that with my last couple of my vehicles on my own, and I've got front and rear, and I know some people go, oh, why you got one in the rear? But just the stories, all it takes is that one. I mean, I know a friend of mine, his father had an accident years ago with a guy, and because it was in a lane, it was just knock for knock. And and he said, I did my best to get out of the way, but this guy, I think there was even a case of, there was wonder, had he been drinking a little bit, because he did his, even though the police came out, he did his damnedest to delay giving a breathalyzer and kept them waiting and waiting. But, you know, because of that, and then you see, I even saw just one the other day, you see these videos of people that will reverse into you or will leap out in front of the car in front of you. And you just, this is madness of the fact that I've got to do this. And that's what's always in my head. I'd rather just pay that £100, get one in the car. I am sorted. I know I'm covered.
But it's got to be hardwired.
Yes.
Otherwise, if it's in the cigarette charger, you'll unplug that for your phone charger, and it'll never go back in.
Well, no, exactly. Yeah, I've
right. I see what you
mine.
mean.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
But it's also, I appreciate it's really difficult to have it on the back of trailers.
Yes.
But, you know, again, a couple of times a year, if not more, we have the case where a tractor and trailer will pull into a lay-by because it's narrow lanes and it's coming the other way.
Yeah.
Then they'll need to back up a bit to get out the lay-by, and someone's parked pulled in right behind them. You know, and crunch. And so we had one the other day, again, low speed, generally minimal damage to this front of the car, but unfortunately people in cars suddenly hold their necks.
Yeah, that's right, of course. Yeah.
Either they have, or they've been sort of coerced into saying they've got something wrong with them.
Yeah, they've heard it read it on the internet.
Just from my own experience of that, having had a severe whiplash claim, and my other half being a nurse, if they say something immediately, there's nothing wrong with them. It's, as she said, for a severe whiplash will come usually a couple of weeks later. And I know in my instance, I ended up with 2 prolapse discs in my neck. So I know it was and that's a whole nother story, trying to get the insurance from that. But yes, but yeah, as you say, that's the problem. You say you've got a trailer, and I know I remember doing it, 30-foot trailer full of straw, and you can't see. You can't see. You're blind. You know
the damage to the trailer if you back into.
Well, yeah, you know you're capable of reversing that. You might only be a foot, because, as you say, you've had to pull in or whatever. You know you're capable of doing, but problem is you don't know what's behind you, what else has pulled in to do a similar thing.
We must say that I always enjoy honest people, and there was my wife was coming out of a supermarket, and at the traffic lights just before she went to the main road, a farmer in his land, he obviously realised he was in the wrong lane and decided he'd reverse. And having worked with farmers all my life, I can imagine you're not used to somebody behind you. And he reversed straight into her. And he got out and he said, give me your details, my fault, I'll pay for everything. And he did. And I always said that's such a good reflection on us in agriculture.
But you could argue, I mean, it's a whole other issue. The fact that we've got to put these cameras in, or the fact that you walk into supermarkets now and the staff have all got cameras in. It's a little bit Big Brother, and a little bit sad that we've got to do that.
Well, that's exactly that story, because the fact that farmer in his Land Rover, he certainly didn't mean to do anything. No. He certainly didn't mean it. And he didn't do huge amounts of damage either. It wasn't like we didn't have to write any cars off.
No.
But it was still always appreciated that he just said, sorry, my fault.
But when you mentioned sort of Land Rovers, obviously Land Rovers and insurance is a big thing at the moment.
Yeah. Right.
Particularly with the new expensive Land Rovers.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So whether you've heard, there's been a few thefts, should we say,
of
Land Rovers.
Yeah.
And so someone obviously knows the particular way of stealing them, of overcoming the security and getting them started.
Yeah.
So much so that, a lot of insurers are taking very tough stances on Land Rovers.
Oh, right. Yeah.
For all types, from
Any Land Rover.
Discoveries, Defenders,
Yeah.
Sports, all Vogues.
But it's interesting, you say, there's always been that thing, isn't it? Because I remember when I emigrated to Australia, I'd had for the previous year what was the farm Land Rover, and I'd had that for the year before I went, because obviously my parents had gone first. I sold it to a bloke in a garage, whatever it was, just literally the day before I flew out. You know, he picked it up, the deal had been done. And next thing I heard, apparently been stolen. But apparently they moved several vehicles to get to this particular Land Rover, and it was gone and never got seen again. They reckon it was done on export or something, and it was gone.
Well, the old style Land Rover always was theft attractive because it was a good bit of kit.
And easy to start, probably.
Well, easy to break into as well.
Yeah, they weren't exactly the most complicated thing.
But the new ones, obviously, it's because of the value. They're so expensive.
Yeah.
So insurers, they've got three options. One is put the insurance up.
Yep.
Yeah.
2, put the excess up. Or 3, both.
They've done both.
So there's a
Yeah,
different...
both sounds better for
them.
So anything like that. So is that other four-wheel drives as well, or just any Land Rover?
Predominantly Land Rovers.
And any kind, whether Range Rover.
Oh, for any spec of them,
Yeah.
And particularly from sort of 19 onwards, that seems to be the when they
the real
change
fancy
security.
ones. Yeah.
But some insurers, for example, put on a co-insurance clause. So you say the value is £100,000.
Yeah.
There'll have be a 5% theft excess. So you've got a £5,000 excess.
Wow.
Plus your normal excess.
Plus your normal excess. So if it's, let's say your normal excess was, I don't know, 500 quid, because you've got that vehicle, it's 500 quid plus 5%.
£5,000, yeah.
Wow.
And then the premium for a Land Rover can easily be $1,500 to £2,500 easy now.
Sure. So it must be, I mean, that must have quite an influence on your decision, whether you're going to buy a Land Rover.
Well, I think so, innit? But I did hear the other day that Land Rover once you've paid for it, will pay you back up to £150 towards your insurance, which kind of indicates there's a bit of an issue. That's
good. Well, actually very good of Land Rover.
They know they've got to though, haven't they? Because as you say, there has been publicity about that it's so nickable, and they came around and said, well, it isn't, but something's going on.
We had a very interesting talk by an insurer the other day with all the technology that's in vehicles, partly to track them for security, but it seems to be that the thieves are using that technology to make it easier to break into vehicles.
Right.
So they can, for example, dismantle a headlamp, plug in their gadget to the system,
right,
and that gives them access to the whole car.
So
it's crazy how easy it can be.
Mention tracking. I'm assuming you would recommend to I've forgotten what the system's called. You'd recommend to all your clients to get their tractors tracked. Smart. I forgot what the system's called.
There's various things like smart water. Or the Caesar data tags.
Yes, data tags.
Obviously, the thing that insurers would really like would be a Thatcham branded tracker. Depending on the type. But a lot of clients will think, we're going to get a discount up front for this. In most cases, you don't. But the idea is that you're that's a risk management tool to protect it from being stolen or protect it from having a big claim in the future. So you're controlling your future premiums by your investment in a tracker.
So does it make a difference or not?
Well, you should get your vehicle back if it is stolen.
It's not necessarily going to make any difference on your premium today, is what you're saying, but because you're lowering your risk or increasing the chance of finding anything that's stolen, therefore it
reduces future premiums.
Premiums because you're not having to make a claim. But
it's not like the black box that you give to the young kids to make sure that they're driving at a reasonable speed.
And it is a good idea, though, isn't it?
I know my kids had them and they used to get so upset about it.
It is frustrating for them when they are stuck, but it makes sense, really, doesn't it, when you're young and inexperienced? But just quickly on that one, there are some insurers more on the commercial side that have a risk management fund. So if you want to spend money on investing forward trackers and things like that, or even dash cams, some will pay a percentage, like 50-50 matching you what you spend to do it. So they'll give you an incentive, because they know it will
the benefit
help
to them
as well.
Say they're in a win-win. They're not going to do it if they're not going to. So do you have, you say that then, do you have many clients that put the cameras on tractors?
More and more.
Do you?
Yeah, but again, it's only because because the technology is moving on. And B, just keep on at them.
But I appreciate And have clients seen the benefit of
Oh,
that?
definitely. Yeah. Most cases now, particularly on when it's HGVs, and if they're in London, they've got to have cameras on.
Yeah.
We're seeing dash cam footage of incidents, whether it's the client's fault or not. At least we can see what's.
But I'm thinking more of a
on.
tractor down the lanes around here. Are you seeing that?
More and more.
You are.
Yeah, but again, some tractors people keep for a long time. Others swap in and out, don't they, every 6 months or even less.
Yeah.
I suppose it's only a matter of time. I mean, my car's got parking sensors, so you can basically see what's in front of you and what's behind you. Surely it's only a matter of time before that information will be saved.
You think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You think, why?
Well, they're built in. They're effectively built in anyway. So
they're built in
why not?
anyway, so it's only a matter of time before somebody says, "Hang on,
Yeah, for sure.
let's just push a button."
Well, that's right. Well, some cars have cameras all built in. Then, like
Exactly.
So
Yes.
why not?
Yeah.
All types of vehicles.
Well,
it's for the greater good as such, isn't it?
Yeah.
But again, it's getting a bit too Big Brother almost.
To a degree. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying about the black box with the kids, because now you have to, when you're driving your tractor, you'd have to be basically driving it correctly.
Yeah, true.
And then another thing that we used to have with quad bikes, my wife worked for a doctor in South Africa, and they actually had a separate, suppose you could say, number or code for quad bike accidents, because they were continuously crashing them. And obviously in South Africa, where there's different systems on farms, more hilly, a little bit more rougher, we used to continuously crash them. But you guys, I mean, surely nowadays, the theft of quad bikes...
I would say, I don't think... I've probably had 2 quad bike crashes.
Right.
And maybe 100 theft.
Yeah.
So,
The
the theft is the issue. But obviously they go to one farm and steal a trailer.
Yeah.
Go to someone else's farm and...
steal the quad bike.
And then steal the quad bike.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh, right.
And it seems to be that they seem to know where it is, but and they tell the police, but the police are unable to recover it.
Yeah.
On thinking back to tractors, I'm sat in my head. What do insurance like to see? Because let's be honest, tractors these days, they're not like what I learned to drive on an old Massey 165. They're a lot bigger. They're just a lot bigger. You're pulling a lot more load. Is there something particularly they like to see? Because let's be honest, it's usually younger drivers usually doing a lot more of the tractor hauling and that. Is there something they like to see?
Well, you'd like to think so, but there isn't really.
There
Obviously from 16 you can have a certain size.
Yeah.
And like you say, the value of tractors now, quite often we've got 150,000.
Because they've got to have a
plus.
trailer license now or not? I can't remember.
Well, there's a certain size trailer, obviously they can pull.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no other additional things that insurers are saying. What we do with all clients quite regularly is get them to check for points on licenses.
Yep.
Obviously, in the old days, you'd had the paper license.
Yeah.
Then you've got your plastic one that doesn't really show much from an update.
Yep.
And you can ask people, and they go, but like asking if you've got a claim. No, I've got no points.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can go online to the government website and do a check on the license
number. Yeah.
And that's what I say. Get the check code, get the license, print it off, save it in their file. That's your evidence that you've done that check.
Yeah.
So insurers want to know, really, even if you've got 3 points now, they might not cause any effect. So if you've got over 6, but they want to know about everything. And if we don't tell them up front, they'll find out about it afterwards. So get all the information that we can up front.
Yeah. But even during, because I know with companies that have fleets, surely, I mean, with cars like myself that are on the road a lot, you're always at risk of 3 points.
Constantly. And there's cameras everywhere, aren't there?
Yeah, and it's obviously the insurer wants to know about that.
Yeah.
And we, in theory, most people actually ask you to supply them with that information. So if you get 3 points, I'm sort of entitled to tell my company, because it does affect your insurance.
Yeah, but it's not just 3 points. And I've got clients that will have 3 points, 3 points, 3 points on the same day, where there's something that's popped up. But insurers are also more concerned about using the mobile phone. That's they've seen that, they deem it to be much more serious.
But the youngsters I see driving tractors on their mobile phone is far too many.
Yeah.
But
the problem is, I suppose, what the dangers of that is that you can actually track the fact that if you've had an accident at this time, and then they can see that they were on the phone. I remember one guy had an accident, and he said the person that drove into him, they actually looked to see if that person had been on their phone during the accident.
Yeah.
And, so I sort of thought to myself, crimey, that's really getting into your.
Yeah, definitely. But insurers, they use all tools at their disposal. So, for example, we go and put a presentation forward for a new risk. They don't just look at that. They will Google. They will look at Facebook. They will look at Instagram, Twitter,
See
LinkedIn.
what you do.
They'll stalk you.
They will look at that client, forensically as well, along with their data modelling for storms and flood and theft and malicious damage.
Well,
Financial checks. They do a proper
research.
deep-
You say that makes me laugh every time I do the house insurance, and it's like, what are your risk of flooding? Well, if we flood up here at the top of Shaftesbury, then God help everybody else.
That's right.
Sometimes the flood maps don't seem to work, but I guess the issue is that you won't flood. But if it's all flooded around you, you can't get anywhere.
True.
Yeah. And it's not to say that you can't flood right here because you've got a burst pipe or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, have water going through your house because the geyser burst.
But I guess in this down south where most of my clients are here, obviously we have had quite a lot of storms, particularly the last sort of 9 months really seem to be. But fortunately, we seem to have done quite well. The odd client has the odd bit of storm damage, and same with flooding. Fortunately, obviously,
Given the amount of rain, I mean, I know, like, I haven't looked at it for a month or two, but like, was it the first 4 months of this year we'd had double our rainfall for Shaftesbury, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And and that was half of our average rain in, was it 3 or 4 months or whatever it was. It was it's just been ridiculous, given how wet it's been.
So even in Shaftesbury, you could actually get a house flooding if it's at a certain sort of like angle or certain wall behind
I
it.
suppose if you had a storm and yes, I know what you're saying, and it came in the wrong way. Yes. Yeah. So you've got that claim, you see it through. How long does it usually take a claim to see through?
Well, again, there is no hard and fast rule. It really does depend on so many factors.
Yep.
Sometimes even the client is not in a rush to get things pushed on because he's concentrating on other things.
Yep.
So there is no definitive. It's a fire is 4 weeks or 12 weeks.
Yep.
Everything is on its merits, as they say.
Yeah. Do having robots and seeing more robots on farm affect insurance? Because obviously you've got not just the robot milking now, but you've got robot scrapers, potentially robot feeders coming into play. Does that autonomous stuff infect insurance in any ways?
Yes and no. Yes, that you're insuring for higher values of machinery.
Yep.
On farm, and then on the flip side, you've got less humans doing work, so you should have less risk to them.
Less errors.
But at the moment, that sort of transition is still quite subtle.
Right.
There's no wholesale change to how insurers are changing their rates for it. It's still a relatively new technology.
Yep.
In the main, they seem to work. I've not heard too many bad stories of them catching fire or
no. I suppose
people.
the other one I've often got is thinking of Clive again. For anyone that's seen pictures of Clive on my social media, Clive's got lost again and he's gone wherever. Or was it they told me once? Was it that somebody was there, a foot trimmer or something, and Clive was banging against the door because that's what they do, and he thought he wanted to let out, so he opened the door and let Clive go, and off this auto scraper went and had to be rescued from wherever. And they said no. The whole point is he bangs into it and then he knows where he is and turns, but because he kept banging, whoever this was from off farm opened the door and just let him go.
Off he's done.
So it's there's, as you say, there's never any issues other than getting lost sometimes, but that's not going to be an insurance claim, is it?
But as that technology evolves and more farmers embrace it, potentially the experience for insurers might change. And they might have a different attitude towards it. But again, it's still relatively low on their agenda. And they're more about the masses of how things are traditionally done.
Yep. Okay. So, really, we've sort of gone through the basics, but I suppose we could ask, what should people be looking for to ensure what they're doing? By the sounds of it, basically make sure they've got all the correct information is really the biggest
definitely.
Housekeeping, and as you said, which I like. I like that word.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, a major factor of it, every business now, particularly on farm, because there's the hazards involved, is health and safety. Different farmers will have different attitudes towards it. It's got to be near enough your highest priority, really. People come to work to go home.
Yes,
so you've got to
everyone wants to go home at the end of the day.
You've got to provide somewhere safe for people to work.
Yeah.
And yes, it might be a bit of aggravation, hassle, cost, new processes to get things sorted. But it's all done.
Someone's life is worth
absolutely.
it.
And
as an industry, we are
it's horrendous.
terrible.
Yeah. But the thing is about that person's potentially injured, but that's affecting you as well. It's not you're not scot-free.
Physically, you might be okay, but mentally, the stress and worry and
future costs and what with concerns with corporate manslaughter.
Yeah.
There's plenty of government bodies looking to potentially have a go at you. So you've got to have layers of defence. And the health and safety policy is a good starting place.
Very, very good. Very good idea.
You reminded me instantly of a moment I sacked a bloke on the spot when I was in Victoria. I was in the dairy watching cups off. Doors were open because it's a lovely day, so I could see across the silage pit. And this guy claimed he was a good tractor driver. Okay. Anyway, if you know, for anyone that's listening, had a Keenan with the bale handling kit on it. And so that meant on the Keenan, you had the T-bars. So they literally, as the paddles went round, they moved these T-bars. So it was like a wave effect going along. And then you had a big serrated edge knife on one edge. So it lifted them up as the paddles went round and pushed them towards the serrated edge. So it cut bales. So Keenan's, one of their weaknesses has always been they're not the best at handling bales. So this could handle bales. So, and then on the back of it had a greedy board that you lifted up so you could then put your bale against it and it pushed it around. So I'm sat there watching this bloke and he's gone up the back of the ladder of the Keenan. And then he's shimmying along the greedy board, kicking at this bale. Well, if that isn't bad enough, I'm then looking and I can see the PTOs going simply because I can see these T-bones, these fingers sort of a wave going up and down as this bale's going across. And I'm like, what do you think you're doing? He goes, I know it was stupid. And I won't repeat exactly what I said, but I said, I know it's stupid, but it's... And then went, you're gone. And he's like, what? I said, he said, but if I'd fallen in, I said, yeah, if you'd fallen in, you'd be dead, I'd be in prison. And I ain't putting up with that. No. You're gone.
Yeah.
And you couldn't believe the stupidity of this bloke. That he was, fair. If you had to do it because something done, fair enough, but you make sure, your tractor's turned off and whatever, and you go up and do it. Even that'd be bad enough because, of course, if you'd slipped and you potentially cut yourself on that straight. But the fact that this Keenan was going and he was trying to kick it in to make it cut the bale faster. It was frightening just to think about it.
If you think of those blades, you just
it was just no, I'm not having it. It's stupid. Yeah, it's more than stupid. I'm not going in jail just because you went and killed yourself. Thank you very much.
I think that's our problem is that people thinking about health and safety. You can have as much health and safety up as you want, but you still have to think.
You still have to have the individual that thinks. Yes.
Well, I think the issue is just that employees maybe come across a problem and they think, well, what would the boss like me to do here?
Yeah.
He'd like me to use my initiative and get it resolved.
Done. True, absolutely.
But he would do if it was safe.
Yes.
And
you need that policy in place.
Well, that's it. And if he's not been told in the first place, he doesn't know any different, I guess.
But you could argue in an instance, I wouldn't think to tell somebody that that's not they shouldn't be doing because I wouldn't think anybody was stupid enough to do it.
Yeah.
Humans are fallible.
Funny things, yes, definitely. But others, you could sit there with this great long list before you've even done anything. You're not to climb on it when it's moving. It should just be, especially if he claimed he was a good tractor driver, it should be, shouldn't have been needed. But
also our industry is probably, if you sort of go back over the years, it's always been rough, tough, and use your hands and And I suppose it's changed now. Machinery's changed considerably.
It's changed massively, hasn't it? Because, I remember as a child, you talking about, you had great gangs of people when it was all small bales, whereas these days everything is big square bales. It's probably just you and one other maybe, and that's it. There's a difference in terms of, like I'd say, I learned to drive on a Massey 165.
Yeah.
That's nothing now compared to that was a fair-sized tractor back then, whereas now it's tiny in comparison to what some of the big tractors are now. They are huge. And, I like you're saying, again, I remember silage making, or my father's silage making, it would have been the 4-ton trailer.
Yeah.
Now, what are they now? 14, 16, 18 tons, some of the trailers? There's huge difference in them. Huge difference.
But I mean, we also did stupid things because
didn't we all?
When I was at school, we had those tower silage.
Yes.
You guys know what they're on?
Yeah, the silo towers. Right. Yeah.
And you pushed the silage in from the top and it fell down. So we were at a school where we would do practical in the afternoon. And they used to make us climb into that.
No.
They'd spray the silage in from the top and then we'd tramp it. So you have the silage coming down on top of you. And you think to yourself, is that... We thought it was quite fun.
That's how it was done, wasn't it?
Yeah, we thought it was fun.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
It's just insane. But that's why I think that farming has always struggled with health and safety because we didn't actually have it. And
well, the other issue with health and safety is that there's so much involved that a farmer does farming, doesn't do health and safety. So he has to use either go to study himself.
Absolutely.
Which he's not,
you spot on.
Not generally going to do. So he has to use an outsourced.
Yeah, it's not a general knowledge. It's like you said.
Which is expensive.
Which is a cost.
And there's different levels of it. Some can be like £5,000 plus, on a 3 or 5 year deal. So you're really paying through the nose. Or you use a independent contractor that might be £1,500 for a couple of days.
Yeah.
But he's set you up. He's given you the information. He'll come back every year to update you.
Yeah.
He'll make sure that you're adhering to what he's put out. He's giving you up to date information. He's prompting you to review it every year, talk to your staff, get them to read it, to sign
explain it,
say they've read and understood it.
Yeah.
And also, it's not just in English. Depending on who you got working for you.
Sure,
might be Polish or whatever.
Foreign language. Because you owe just as much duty of care to a foreign worker than a UK one.
It's like one of the cheese processors locally in Somerset. You come out of their factory and the signs are in Polish as well as they are in English.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Just tell them which side of the road to go on, isn't it? Yeah. So I guess that's health and safety in a degree for the staff and the wider environment, because if they go on the wrong side of the road, then...
But what you guys are saying is so important, because Andrew actually mentioned, and it sort of like clicked with me with health and safety, is what you would think would be complete common sense not to do because you've grown up on a farm. Let's say you brought somebody in. I was speaking to a farmer last week, and all of the people that work on his farm didn't grow up on a farm. So none of them actually understand those dangers. So exactly what we're saying is that if you don't actually bring in that health and safety person that can actually think, don't get up and do that. And we go, surely that's just common sense. But if you actually haven't grown up or don't understand a tractor, I always boast because of where I grew up. I've been in agriculture all my life. I've never once ever driven a tractor. So if you think, so if you put me on a tractor, I'd be a liability. Well, maybe not anymore now because now they're so modern. But I wouldn't trust myself on one.
It's funny you say that. I mean, this is when I was back at school. We had to do a drama and we had to give a talk. Do you know what my talk was? It was that just because you have a car license doesn't mean you should be allowed to drive a tractor. Even then, that was then, and this was even talking about like the 165, the fact that the gear stick was between your legs, not like it is now to the side or whatever. But it was just because you've got a car license doesn't mean you're safe driving a tractor.
You had a double clutch.
Not at all.
But like you say, you do see a lot of young kids, and particularly around silage time, driving quite quickly.
And muck spreading. That always worries me because that's a huge amount of tonnage that you...
and the mess as well. So it does make you wonder sometimes.
Well, maybe this isn't the subject for a day, but I know that has been talk, and I really do wonder, is this almost you should have an HGV, let's call it HGV light, for driving tractors and trailers now, especially when you're driving something like a fast track or something like that. I mean, the speed that, some of them do 50 Ks now, whereas, I mean, what were we doing? 30, I mean, I certainly remember when we started getting 40 K tractors, that then we were all arguing over who didn't want the 30 K tractor because you were going that much slower to get everywhere.
That's right.
But moving on, just sort of quickly, because I'm sort of looking at the time, are there any particular other points you want to tell us, or any particular stories of like, what's the weirdest thing you've ever had to be asked to insure? Or, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of...
I always remember someone tried to pay a premium in carpet once.
In carpet?
Carpet, yeah. was I in the market for some carpet? So no, I declined that one.
Right.
But thanks to Clarkson's Farm, I seem to have picked up a bit of a nickname of Cheerful Charlie.
Of course.
I was often come on giving people the bad news. But I don't mind that because he's okay, isn't he?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Oh, that is funny, that one.
But-
I think there's our clip for social media.
But I think the main things that farmers have got to do is they've got to, housekeeping is important.
Yeah.
They have to have health and safety, and they've got to layer things. So layer what they do, layer security.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to try and prevent people from stealing from you.
Yep.
You know, delay it. You know, there's various technologies out there. I appreciate with CCTV, people can put hoods up and things like that, but some deterrent is better than none.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, as much as you do, there's always going to be someone out there to try and take it from you.
Sure.
Yep.
But yeah, but that's what brokers are for, to come and give you that independent advice.
Right.
And
That makes sense.
So then, okay, then why should they use a broker rather than just go direct?
Well, they're quite limited who they go direct to. There's a couple of well-known providers.
Yep.
But their staff only have knowledge of their one product.
Yep.
Whereas an independent broker's got, half a dozen plus different markets with different pros and cons
Yep.
that may be more beneficial for that particular client. It's not just one fits all. And these are commercial insurers that want to do that farming product, whereas some of the other providers seem to want to diversify and just do home and car now, really.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, because obviously the risk is different, and I suppose our industry is more specific, and so yeah.
that's it.
Well, I mean, I know when I did my insurance with you, it came down to about one person in the end, wasn't it? Because of what I do, it's very specific as to what's being actually being covered for in terms of the indemnity. What's public? Was it public?
Professional.
Yes, professional indemnity. Yeah, whichever it was, but it is. It's you've got to talk to, because obviously if I just rung up someone, they're going to go, huh? Whereas I'm letting you do the yards basically, aren't I, to find it.
And you understand it.
And the thing that that we do is that if we don't have the answer, we don't know, or we can't do it, we just say no and explain why. Not go, well, let's just try.
Or
it.
try,
So,
or put some premiums up.
The
Like
ability
crazy,
to say no is quite good sometimes.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely, it is. Of course, it is. Yeah,
definitely. No. So, as we usually do, any last words of wisdom, Simon?
Well, I'm at the Gillingham and Shaftesbury show this year, so come and have a chat, have a beer or a Coke, and we'll see what's possible.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, Simon. It was great.
That's good.
Yeah.
No. Well, thank you. Obviously, for anybody local, please do support Simon and obviously the Gillingham and Shaftesbury show. Sorry, brain has gone.
Insurance does that for people.
I know.
Insurance claims.
Yes. But obviously, thank you for talking to us a little about insurance and some of the bits and pieces that people need to be looking out for. And particularly, I think the biggest message, from the beginning is make sure you're insured properly, because it sounds like
get your housekeeping right.
There's a lot of people underinsured.
Yeah, for sure.
Any thoughts from yourself, Neil?
No, that housekeeping, I really like that. That's a very good idea. Get your ducks in the row from the beginning,
definitely.
and with it, and then of course health and safety.
Absolutely.
Health and safety. Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. It's been excellent.
On that one, thank you very much, and it's a goodbye from me.
And from me.
And from me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry brought to you from the southwest of England and listened to around the world. And now for the really boring bit, I'm afraid, the legal disclaimer. The information provided during this podcast has been prepared for general information purposes only and does not constitute advice. The information must not be relied upon for any purpose, and no representation or warranty is given to its accuracy, completeness, or otherwise. Any reference to other organisations, businesses, or products during the podcast are not endorsements or recommendations of Chewing the Cud Limited. The views of Andrew Jones are personal and may not be the views of Chewing the Cud Limited, and the views of Neil Gregor are personal and may not be the views of Game Changer Farming and any affiliated companies. For more information on the podcast and details of services offered by Chewing the Cud Limited, visit www.chewingthecud.com. Thank you and goodbye.